Hi everyone, welcome to week 4 of data journalism. We're going to have 2 training videos this week. This first one will cover these exercises at the top on interviewing data, a little more spreadsheet work. So what I need you to do here is pause this video and open up these first 2 links here, the exercise sheet and also the data set itself. And I'll show you how to make a copy of that. So go ahead and hit pause and then restart once you have these 2 documents open. Okay, welcome back everybody. We're going to talk a little bit about interviewing data. As I mentioned in one of our earlier trainings, I think it was week 2, we talked about asking questions of data and grouping data in different ways. You can pose questions to data much like you would do an interview with a person. You know, ask the basic who, what, when, where, how much type questions. You can also, the why question's a little tough with data, but sometimes you can take that information that you do from analyzing a data set in a spreadsheet and, take it and, go interview people, an expert source or something like that. Why are homicide statistics, skyrocketing in Chicago over the last 2 or 3 years? And you talk to a criminal law professor or, the cops or somebody like that to see, what their take on it is. You talk to neighborhood association groups, community policing groups, people that live in some of the neighborhoods where most of those occur. But being able to sort and analyze and filter data in a spreadsheet can help raise questions and also answer some questions as well. So one of the handouts I asked you to open was this one. It's an in-class exercise. If we were meeting in person, we'd be doing this in the lab, but it recreates pretty well for a digital exercise. And I've got the list down here of how to do it. So you've got written instructions here. And what I'm going to do is walk you through it visually, because some of you are visual learners. You learn best by watching the videos. That's kind of how I learn. And then recreating the exercise. Others prefer, kind of the step-by-step textbook method, which we have here. I actually do this in Excel on the exercise itself. I'll do it on Google Sheets here, so you could have it both ways. So either way, you can go in. If you prefer to work on Excel, you could go to File, Download, and you can download it as a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet or a CSV file, comma separated values. That'll open in Excel as well. Or you can just take and make a copy of it here in Google Sheets. Don't type or analyze on this copy, but go into File, select Make a Copy, put your name on it, and then the very important step, like we did last week, don't leave it in our class folder. Click on it here, and then go find the folder that you want to go and store it in. Wherever you put your homework or some of your random files, things like that. So I'm going to drop mine into this classroom folder, and then I can always search for it and find it later on. So I'll hit select there, and then OK. And now I've got a copy. It'll have my new name for it here, and then up here in the upper left-hand corner. And the data set we're looking at here is from Fairfax County, Virginia, the Fairfax County Sheriff's Office. This is what we're looking at here is your cut and dry police blotter. If you've ever been busted, your name goes into a police blotter. That's part of the thing. And later, the charges could be dropped, or you could be convicted of the crime. But regardless, your name's going in this police blotter. This is just a running daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly and then annual collection of police data. These are just arrests. Somebody's been arrested for something. They didn't necessarily do it. They're not convicted. They haven't seen a judge yet. This is just a log of people that have been arrested and are being accused of something. So here in the blotter, our first row up here at the top has the labels that run underneath each piece of data, just like the data sets we worked with in week 3. So we have last name, first name, middle initial, which is really important, especially for a common name. If your name's Joe Smith, Joe H. Smith, which helps narrow down, the number of Joe Smiths that it could be. It has the age of the accused, the date they were arrested, 4/2/14. a charge number, and typically this isn't going to mean much outside of the police department. And then this charge description, which does mean something. This is where you can see, was it a homicide? Was it drunk in public? Was it a driving offense? Is it grand larceny, stolen property, and so on. There's all kinds of different charges in here. Then it has a street address of where that person that stands accused lives. Okay. And that helps narrow down, again, to, who it is. Joe Smith, there might be 20 Joe Smiths that live in, Fairfax County, Virginia, but there's probably only one that lives at that specific address that lines up with that name, okay? So you can sort and filter this data set any number of different ways. So to do so, do like we did in our last exercise. Click in the little rectangle here in the upper left-hand corner between A and 1 to highlight the entire sheet. And we're going to go in and it seems to already be in chronological order. So it's 4-2, 4-1, it's kind of a mix here of dates, but it appears to be in some type of chronological order. Yeah, some late March dates in here. So this is mostly March, but goes into early April a little bit. It's not always a clean cutoff date, but it looks to be in chronological order here. I can make it reverse chronological order by doing either a sort on it and just doing A to Z rather than Z to A, and it'll sort it that different way. So let's do that. Let's just sort by the date arrested. To do that, we go up to Data. Okay, and we're going to sort range, and we're going to go down here. Don't use the shortcut ones. These tend to blow up spreadsheets. I don't know why they have them in here. The shortcuts just aren't very effective. Go to the advanced. Now I've selected everything, including the header row. So this is going to be a little different experience than what we had last time, where we just painted part of the data set. Here we have to check data has header row because we've got it highlighted. Then I can sort by, and this is the importance of having these headers in here, date arrested. And then we'll do A to Z. We'll do it in chronological order. This is in reverse chronological order. I'll hit sort. And now they actually have some charges that go back to 2012 and 2013. And if you look at some of these, some of these are very, serious charges, stolen goods, first offense, things like that. The person may have been brought back in on those charges. They may not have gotten filed until this date. So the case may have started a little bit earlier, but these dates go way back. Or maybe they're appearing before a judge the first time, so they put them back on the police blotter. Occasionally, even though this basically runs from the first quarter of 2014, you'll see some older cases that work in here sometimes. And these are pretty, disposing of a dead body, stolen goods, these are pretty serious offenses. That's why they're looping back around and being dropped back in here. So as we look here, we can see it was pretty quiet the first week of January, but we start to see some crimes here. You can go through and filter these out by specific dates. You may see a certain day of the week and look for trends here. Over time, the 20th, there were a bunch of arrests here, so, written threat, aggravated sexual battery, there's a lot of arrests made on this date, look into that. Why? And if you look at it over time, maybe a couple of years, is there a certain day of the week that there's more arrests than others? You can look for those types of trends. It's kind of interesting sometimes to see, what happens. Look at around the holidays, things like that. Do certain crimes show up more? We looked at that at the start of the pandemic, the first 2 months of the pandemic. We saw that domestic abuse cases just skyrocketed in Chicago. It became a really, really, scary story for us to write, but a very, very necessary one as well. Just because we began to see, those types of charges popping up, from early part of March through the early part of May. It's a very scary story. So we can start asking questions of the data. Let's sort by age, which is column D. So go back up to data, sort range, now advanced sorting options, select our header row, and now we're going to go to age. Okay, and we're going to start young and then grow old. So we're going to go with lower numbers, younger people that have been arrested, and then hit sort. And you may notice the cutoff age is 18. Anything under 18 is juvenile court. So those records are sealed until the person, typically they're expunged and wiped clean when the person turns 18. But typically those records are sealed until they're turned 18 and then expunged. The only time it's somebody younger than 18 shows up in here is if it's a particularly heinous crime, maybe a murder or something like that. And they feel there's a strong public right to know, and they feel that the kid needs to be tried as an adult, And typically you're looking at, somebody 16, 18 years old, but, sometimes you'll see some very young ages in here, pretty scary stuff that they're trying, a kid as an adult. But as we look through here, take a pause and take a look at these ages, 18, 19, 20 here. And then take a look at the charge descriptions, okay? And you're probably going to notice some patterns here, okay? Even hit pause if you want to and spend some time, looking at the ages, all the way from 18 up till about 20. We got some hellraisers in Fairfax County. A lot of people under the age of 20 in here. Being bad. So you may notice here, a lot of these charges are drug related. There's some stolen theft, but drugs and alcohol tend to be the most common charges that you'll see here. A few driving ones, a few other, the monuments too, we'll get to in a minute. There's some serious stuff in here, grand larceny, some pretty heavy stuff, but a lot of them are, possession of marijuana, things like that. Be careful when analyzing data. What we can say here and what we can't say here. We can't say Fairfax County, Virginia has a drug problem with people ages 18 through 20 years old because there's been a bunch of arrests for it. But what we can do is write to, there have been X number, we'd count these up, X number of drug and alcohol arrests in Fairfax County, Virginia in the first quarter of 2014. So you could write to the number and give the number. And if you looked back over past police blotters, you could say, hey, that's a 5% increase over previous years, or whatever it happens to be. If you're tracking this data over, a long period of time, you can really see these trends begin to unfold. Are the numbers going up or down? Any change in that, that's news. The changes in the numbers. A budget goes up or down, that's news. Crime statistics go up and down. Chicago's homicide rate, carjackings, which we saw skyrocket, during the pandemic, that's news. Okay, it's a public safety issue. But be careful about drawing what we call gross generalizations. Be able to write to the numbers. Here's how many people between the ages of 18 and 20 in Fairfax County, Virginia in the first quarter of 2014 were arrested on drug or alcohol related charges. That's fact, okay? As opposed to drawing an inference or making a gross generalization and saying, Fairfax County, Virginia's got a problem with young people and young adults and alcohol and drugs. That's kind of a broad sweeping statement. Right to the facts. That's what we do as journalists. You may notice too over here in the column on the far right, the data is dirty. It is missing some of the data, the addresses of some of the people who are facing the charges. It's just incomplete data. This is a situation where you'd probably go back to the desk sergeant at the police department or the public information officer for the police department and say, hey, can we go through and fill in these addresses and call them up or go over there and ask for the addresses so it's complete. You may notice some people too have multiple charges. This Henry Daniel Chiricos, they kind of filed a whole bunch of stuff at him. He was racing he was drugs, drug possession, drugs, marijuana, alcohol. So they've got several charges against him here. And notice that too, that this isn't just a pure number. This is some people have multiple charges against them. This Cargus too has 3 charges. So be careful when counting up the number of people arrested. So let's flip this now and look at older folks who've been busted. So we can go back to advanced sorting, hetero. We'll go with age. And now we'll do Z to A. We'll look at the older folks. So if you want to hit pause and just kind of study your spreadsheet and look again at the charges and the ages, kind of look at the over 60 crowd and see what the common issue is there. All right. As you may have noticed, a lot of driving-related incidents. Older people, it's harder to get their license, or they're driving without a license. Maybe if they flunked their test and they say, to hell with it, I'm going to drive anyway. There's a lot of driving charges here. Now, can we say, older people in Fairfax County, Virginia are bad drivers? No, we can't say that. That's opinion. That's an inference. That's a gross generalization. Okay, but what we can say is X number of people over the age of 60 have been arrested on driving-related incidents. Okay, now there's a few other things here, drunk driving or drunk in public, larceny. There's other charges in here, petty larceny. So keep that in mind as well. But still, you see these common threads start to shape here. And again, you'd compare this not just to this one quarter, but all 4 quarters of the previous year or the year before that. Has it gone up or has it gone down? Okay. Remember too, we can filter data. So we can go up here to data and create a filter. So data filter. And it supplies these little pull-down menus next to each of your descriptions in the first row. These little flyout menus allow you to filter out all the other information and isolate just one category. So let's do this for charges, okay? So go over here to column G and hit your little flyout here. I call it the mini tornado. And notice it's got all of them checked. Okay, I'm gonna clear them. And then in this one, I'm going to type in a certain type of charge. Monuments. Monument intentional damage. I think there's a few of them in here. Okay, and these are 3 of them. Hit OK. This is an interesting charge. This is a very common one. I used to live in the district when I worked at the Washington Post. I lived in Virginia for a short while. And they have a lot of monuments throughout Virginia and the District of Columbia. Some are state monuments that are in parks and things like that. Some are federal monuments. And destruction to a monument in this area, can be a federal crime. If you go down to Lincoln Memorial and spray paint something on it, and they catch you, you're in big trouble. And this has been a big issue here. With the Columbus statue, being taken down, and the protests we've had at it, people, who were spray painting stuff on it and things like that. People were very upset that these, monuments, exist. A lot of them are, people from the Confederacy during the Civil War, and they offend people. But it is against the law to either steal them or do intentional damage to them, depending on the price range or the value of the damage that the police determine. And kind of a wide range of age here too, which I think is interesting. And these can come from protests, or maybe it's a bunch of young people just horsing around after at night on a weekend, and hey, let's go down and spray paint this. But it's always an interesting thing to look at kind of some of these odd charges like this and see exactly. Pick up on these trends. Is this going up or down? And we saw this, in the early stages of the Black Lives Matter movement in cities all over the country. Charges like this became quite prevalent. To get rid of your filter, it's pretty easy to do. You can click on the little martini glass over it and go back to select all. Hit OK, and it brings them all back. So it allows you to filter things out without deleting your entire data set. So you can kind of go in there and get a quick snapshot. I can go back here again and look at charge description. I'll clear them all, and I'll go down here to scroll down to D, and I'll just look at all the driving related ones, or I can do drunk. Let's do the drunk driving ones, or drug ones, excuse me. Drugs. A lot of drug charges. So I can isolate only the drug possession ones. There's a lot of them on the books here. Everybody, all these drugs. There we go. Oh no, drunk in public, it doesn't. Dumping trash. I know. There's some really interesting offenses in here. Especially when you get into rural areas. They have old laws in some rural states that are just bizarre. Man walking goat down street. It's against the law in some places, and they bust people for it. It's absolutely hysterical sometimes to see these archaic laws that were written like in the 17 or 1800s, still showing up in police blotters. There used to be a website called strangelaws.com that tracked all that kind of stuff in the arrests. It was always interesting. As you can see, you can isolate now all the drug-related charges. Okay. So I don't mean to be whistling in the graveyard when I look at these charges. These things are crimes. They're very serious in nature, but it is fun to kind of look at some of these bizarre charges and find these trends. There's some really scary stuff in here. There's kidnapping charges. Aggravated assault, aggravated sexual assault. Look at all the assault categories. Really scary stuff. So you can use these tools to go in and sort and filter by age, by type of charge. You can sort by names, even street addresses to see relationships. Are a number of people that are living at one address committing a bunch of different crimes. You can sort and filter that out. So remember, interviewing data, asking basically who, what, when, where, how, and how much type questions can help you sort out a data set pretty quickly. So that's it for this first video. Go ahead and play around with the data set on your own. Our second video will cover math for journalists and the math for journalists assignment, which will be due on Monday, February 7th. So stay tuned for that next video.